So nice to see you here. Thank you. Is anybody here for the first time? Oh my goodness. Well, it's nice to meet all my new friends as well as those whom I have already met. So before we do anything else, we introduce ourselves to each other. So please introduce yourself to the people to your left and to your right and in front of you and behind you. And now please join with me and let's take a deep breath and close our eyes. We see in the middle of our mind a little ball of golden light. And we watch this light as it begins to grow, larger and larger, until now it covers the entire inner vision of our mind. And we see for ourselves within this light a beautiful temple. We see a garden that surrounds the temple and a body of water that flows through the garden. We see that the inside of the temple is lit as well by this same beautiful golden light. And here we are, for we have been drawn together by the power and in the presence of God. We devote our time spent together, all of our relationships and experiences of one another to Him. And we pray that His most Holy Spirit be upon us, lifting us above and beyond the thoughts of sorrow and fear and despair to the infinite love and inner peace that lay beyond. And so it is. Together we say, Amen. Also, I want to welcome those of you on live stream. I forgot for a minute, so thank you no matter where you are, welcome. Tonight, I want to talk to you about the practicality of spirituality, the practicality of books like A Course in Miracles. For anyone who might be new here to A Course in Miracles is a set of books. 3 volumes are contained actually in this one book. It is a mind training, a psychological mind training on the relinquishment of a thought system based on fear and the acceptance instead of a thought system that is based on love. A Course in Miracles is not a religion. There is no doctrine, there is no dogma. It is based on universal spiritual themes. It does use traditional Christian language, but in a decidedly non-traditional, psychotherapeutically oriented way. A Course in Miracles has been described as a self-study program of spiritual psychotherapy. What we learn here are principles, themes, the Course in Miracles says, universal spiritual themes that are found in all the great religious and spiritual systems of the world. Now, when I said that it's not a religion, you know, the word religion comes from a Latin root, religio, which means to bind back. The idea here is that the thinking of the world is 180 degrees away from thinking that is the deepest fundamental truth of who we are, which is the same thing as saying that the world is dominated by thinking that is 180 degrees away from God. God is love. And the love of God in each and every one of us is a love that is not separate, love in you, love in you, love in you, and love in me, but rather more like an aspen grove. We are all united by the fact that we share the same root system. The notion of the collective unconscious that was popularized by the Swiss psychologist Carl Jung is the notion that if you go deep enough into your mind and deep enough into mine, that there are a set of mental archetypes that we all share. The metaphysical notion of the Christ mind goes one step further. It's not just that there are mental images in you that are the same as the mental images in me. It is rather that if you go deep enough in you and deep enough in you, and deep enough in you, and deep enough in me, we are one mind. Much like a wheel. If you identify the spokes of the wheel with their position on the rim, it seems like there are many, many spokes to the wheel. But if you identify each spoke with its original point, its point of origin, it is one point. And so the notion of faith in the Christ, for instance, from a metaphysical perspective, it is the notion that I have faith that in that place where I am you and you are me. Now notice that. Where does something like the creation of intimacy come in once you realize that you don't have to create intimacy, because how much more intimate could we be than that we are each other? And we keep seeking to form bonds. We keep seeking to form connection when really it is the acceptance and the realization of the connection that is already the truth of who we are that opens the mind to the thinking and thus the behavior, which will then manifest in the world the oneness that we share. Now, we all are aware that institutional organized religions in many cases throughout history have become problematical at best. But many people, having turned their backs on certain dimensions of dogma and doctrine that they received in certain religious orientations, have now found that they threw away the baby with the bathwater. That they didn't want the dominance of rules that they didn't understand and doctrines that made no sense, but we still want the essence of the religio. We want the essence of the spiritual and mystical experience that is at the heart of all the great religious and spiritual teachings. So there's a great revolution, spiritual revolution going on. In many ways, it's going on within religious institutions. Here, I think Marble is an example. The collegiate churches, Michael Brown, Jackie Lewis, there are so many ways and places where you see and you might find within your own religious orientation. A Course in Miracles calls to people from all different religious systems and from no religious systems. What we are about is the actual spiritual experience that is the ultimate goal of any religious context. And that has to do, number one, with the realization that we are not many, we are one. We are not separate from each other, but we are rather one. And the part of my mind that realizes my oneness with you, whether you call that the Christ mind or the Buddha mind or the Shekinah that is spoken of in Judaism, there are many words that we can use to describe this. But if I live my life from the realization that at the deepest level, like the aspen trees, even though above the ground they appear to be separate, but below the ground there is only one root system, so that actually it's the largest living organism on earth. If we live from that place, living from that confluence of thought that realization gives rise to, keeps me within a cosmically ordered universe. What does that mean? It makes me wise, it makes me smarter, makes me kinder, makes me more able to form good relationships, makes it easier for me to create, to be effective on the earth, etc. When you live outside the realization of who you are, when you live outside the realization that you are not separate from everybody else, but you're actually one, that you are not this separate identity of bodies and worldly story, but that rather your actual true identity is not of this world. When you realize this, you stay within that cosmically ordered universe. When you do not realize that, you are cast out of the garden, symbolically, and you are cast into a disordered, chaotic universe. And that, of course, gives rise to anxiety, it gives rise to depression, it makes us fractured within ourselves. When I do not realize who I am, I experience myself as fractured from my source. I cannot realize, from a spiritual perspective, I cannot realize who I am without realizing where I come from. The Course in Miracles says you have an authorship problem. You are led to believe on this earth that you authored yourself. And so you think of yourself, the Course says, as needing to go out there and figure out what you should do. And so that's kind of how we live our lives. Like, I got to just figure out what I think I should do. And then we saunter out into the world. But if I think my function on this earth is to just go figure out what I think I should do, I am out of alignment with the spiritual perspective. The spiritual perspective is, I am love. I am love because I am an idea in the mind of God, and I am on this earth in any given instant, in any given moment, that the love of God, that is the home, my true source, which is always in any given instant, mine to download from the higher regions of consciousness. And then as I receive that loving thought, then it comes into my brain, it comes into my subconscious, it works through all that I have, all that I am, and then my job is to extend it out into the world by making myself devotional and surrendered, praying that I be used. Now, those are two very different orientations to life. One is, I got to go figure out what I want to do. And the other orientation to life is, dear God, please use me. Now, this notion of, dear God, please use me, as we were talking about last week, every cell in the body is assigned. Every cell in the body is assigned to a particular organ. It could be the blood, the bones, the abdomen, the whatever. And it is assigned to other cells with which it collaborates in order to serve the healthy functioning of the organ and the organism of which they are part. The body, in other words, is self-organizing. The spiritual perspective is that the entire universe is self-organizing. The universe, as well as the body, are not only self-organizing, they're self-correcting. The body of humanity, of the human species, would not have thrived, would not have survived and thrived over the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years that we have, without being imbued with the capacity to take a hit. It's called the immune system. Because of the immune system, we are able to integrate quite a large amount of assault and injury and disease and heal from that. The psyche has an immune system. Society has an immune system. So when a cell dysfunctions, and you and I are all cells in the body of humanity, when a cell dysfunctions, the body, through the immune system, has a way of bringing forth correction. Now, what is happening in the human race at this moment is dis-ease. And as we were talking about last week, just as in the body, when cells lose conscious contact, as they would say in AA, when cells lose the connection through their own natural intelligence to their rightful place in the scheme of things, collaborating with other cells to serve the healthy function of the whole. When instead cells go over here and say, I just want to do my own thing and figure out what I want to do, that's called malignancy. It's a malignancy in the body. It is cancer in the body when cells just go off to do their own thing. It is a malignancy in the body, and it is a malignancy in consciousness. And that is what has happened to the human race. We have forgotten that we are here with and for each other. And that has turned us into cells that are going off and doing our separate things, too often without deep consideration of our divine function, our natural function, to collaborate with others to serve the healthy function of the whole. That should be our question that we ask ourselves in relationships. How am I collaborating with others, not attacking other cells? The cancer cell attacks other cells. We're not here to attack other cells. We are here to collaborate with other cells in order that together we serve the healthy functioning of the whole. And that thought, that trend, that trajectory of energy is what makes the body survive and thrive, and that trajectory of energy is what makes society survive and thrive. But we have developed a society in which we have allowed the idea that it's all about me. It's all about me just going out and doing what I want to do. And it's not just this society, it's human civilization. We have fallen asleep to our divine function. Our divine function being our realization of who we are, by a realization of who we are together, by knowing that we are not here to attack, we are here to love, we are here to collaborate. That should be the purpose of every relationship, that should be the purpose of every business, that should be the purpose of every domestic and international policy. How do we support the process by which humanity thrives? That's the problem. The problem takes many different forms. Environmental desecration comes from the fact that we are not reverent towards the earth. The fact that there are so many problems on this planet comes from the fact that we are not reverent towards our function as being the generation that is here to take care of generations behind us. You could look at almost any problem on the planet today and make a very, very serious argument for the fact that if we made our bottom line, giving every child on the planet to the best of our ability under 8 years old, everything they need in terms of food, in terms of health, in terms of opportunity, if we actually took care of our young, which is what the body does. Any woman that has ever brought a child to term knows that you're kind of oven detail when you're pregnant. Nature clearly is on the side of the new one coming. If your bladder needs to be moved to the side, your bladder will be moved to the side. If you need to not sleep, that's it, because you can just feel it in your body that this nature is about the new one, not about you. And when society functions in a healthy way, we see ourselves that way. But we do not put our children first. Children have no economic leverage. Children, therefore, do not have huge corporate lobbyists, etc. So we could go on and on forever about how many of the problems on the planet today come from the fact, as Gandhi said, the problem with the world is that humanity is not in its right mind. However, what we want to concentrate on is the fact that in nature there is an immune system. Now, given things such as our presidential election and the politics in the United States and international terrorism, it is a very disturbing time. It is a very disturbing time because it seems that the problems are so multifaceted that it's like playing whack-a-mole. It's like every time one problem seems to be sort of taken care of, another 2 or 3 emerge. It's very much like the Hindu story of the goddess Durga. You know, Durga is a very luxuriating goddess, and she doesn't really like to be bothered. She's up there in whatever that realm is that she loves so much, and she just kind of glances down. And in that particular story, humanity is in big trouble. And humanity starts praying to Durga, Durga, please come help us, come help us. And she goes, no. And they go, well, we really need you, we really need you. And she says, do it yourself. And they start cutting the heads off the monsters. But unfortunately, every time in the kingdom they cut the head off the monster, 3 more appear. And that certainly seems parallel to a lot of what's happening on the planet. Finally, things get so bad that they beg Durga to come down. And she does. She says, all right. She comes down. The kingdom is brought back into natural divine right order. This is why Mahatma Gandhi said about India, in order for India to overthrow the colonialism of the British Empire, he said there needed to be a spiritual awakening. It's why the nonviolent movement for civil rights in the United States in the 1960s, as Martin Luther King said, would come from a spiritual awakening. It's why Einstein said the problems of the world the solutions to the problems will not be on the same level of thinking as the level on which the problem manifests. So Durga comes down, and because Durga is present, the monsters are finally slayed. They are finally gone. And then it's very interesting because Durga doesn't hang around. They say, oh, please, Durga, stay down with us. She says, no. She goes back up. I love her, the whole tone of Durga. She's so like, but there's this sense that if you need me again, I will be here. But the message of all the gods and all the goddesses, the message of Jesus, the message of any great religious and spiritual avatar, is not what they do for us, but rather what they do through us. God cannot do for us what he will not and cannot do through us. God's power is unlimited. What is too often limited is our miracle readiness. What is too often limited is our willingness to be used. And this is where free will comes in. In any given moment in all of our lives, in any given moment, we are confronted by a choice. And in any given moment, we make a choice. We make that choice consciously, or we make that choice unconsciously. Will I open my heart and allow myself to be used? What is the non-judgmental thought? What is the non-defensive thought? What is the loving? What is the alignment? What is the divine alignment? If I am love and I'm on this earth to be God's representative of love, what do I think and what do I do? But the problem is that, as I said earlier, the thinking of the world is 180 degrees away from the thinking of God. And from the time we're very, very young, we are trained to think in the exact opposite way. We are taught that we are not one, but rather that we are separate. We are taught not that we are here to collaborate, but that we are here to compete, and that if you get a piece of the pie, there's less for me. And therefore, I'm going to grab a piece of the pie and not worry about the fact that there's less for you. We are taught that each other are dangerous, basically. We are taught the thoughts of attack and the thoughts of defense. That is what the Course in Miracles calls the ego mind. There are many different ways, many different words for this. It's kind of like, I remember telling myself many years ago not to worry about the devil. There's nothing out there, trying to stalk the world or, people's minds. I remember saying to myself, Marianne, you absolutely do not have to worry about that. That is so completely that's all in your mind. And then I realized that is the worst place it could possibly be. That is the point here. It's in your mind. There's no devil out there, but then metaphysically there is no out there. Time and space themselves are all an illusion of consciousness, as Einstein said, albeit a persistent one. But there is within all of us. You can call it the shadow. The Course in Miracles calls it the ego. It is this tendency to perceive without love. It is our tendency to perceive without love. And because we are taught a thought system based on ego from the time that we're born, the Course in Miracles says that by a very early age, natural loving thought feels unnatural to us. And unnatural thought filled with attack and judgment and defense actually feels more natural. So as Course in Miracles students, as we read the text, as we do the workbook exercises, the 365 days of workbook exercises train the mind to think along the lines that the text sets forth. It's no different than going to the gym. You train your muscles. And if you do not train your muscles after a certain age, if you're not working at keeping them up, they're headed down. Same with your mind. It is the same principle. You are training and honing your attitudinal muscles. Because at a certain point, if you're not working at keeping them up, they're headed down. What does down mean? What does gravity mean? Emotional gravity, psychological gravity. Cynicism, anger, right? Victimization, all the disempowering thoughts which will lead you to behavior which will only make things worse. The Course in Miracles says the ego is the great dictator of wrong decisions. Now, we already talked about how in the body, when there is disease, when there is dysfunction, when there is a problem, there is an immune system. In my latest book called Tears for Triumph, it's about our psychic immune system. When we are going through grief, when we are going through loss, how the psychic immune system operates. And tonight, what the conversation becomes is what is the societal immune system. We know that there are many different problems. Many people feel moved on different levels, just like in the body, every cell is assigned. You are assigned to the heart, you are assigned to the liver, you are assigned to the blood. Many of us feel, you feel a passion for the environmental issues. That's your assignment. You feel a passion about children. That's your assignment. You feel a passion about social justice, criminal justice reform, prison industrial complex. That's your assignment. You feel a passion about women. That's your assignment. You feel a passion about peacekeeping issues. That's your assignment. And when it comes to voting, when it comes to politics, as President Eisenhower said, that should be the part-time profession of every American. It is one of the ways that we consciously rise to the occasion. And that's the difference between a suppressed immune system and a healthy immune system. I remember many, many years ago, I was living in New York, and there was a big story. And the story was about a little girl who had been living, it was here in Manhattan, with a foster care father, and he killed her. And the reason the story was so big at the time was because quite a few people had called. Quite a few people, do you remember that? It was decades ago. Quite a few people had called what they thought were the proper authorities. So the problem was not that people hadn't noticed. The problem was that people hadn't cared. The problem was that the system wasn't vital. So the problem wasn't just this man. The problem was the immune system. And that's how an immune system operates. There are in all of our bodies, you know, the bacteria and the germs and the viruses and even the cancer and all of that. But in the immune system, the cells rise up to take care of it. We've been talking about this political season. You know, many of the things that everybody's so appalled about right now didn't just emerge. They didn't just happen. Where you do not, the metaphysical principle here is if you do not use your psychic energy, the power of your mind, in the service of the light, darkness sets in. We have this myth of neutrality. We live our lives like, well, I mean, I don't want to hurt anybody. I mean, I'm not out to help anybody, but I mean, I'm not out to hurt anybody. The Course in Miracles says there is no such thing as a neutral thought. Every thought we think either leads us and those around us to heaven, i.e. the consciousness of our oneness and the peace that results from that, or to hell, which is the anxiety and the craziness that we feel when our ego mind is in charge. So if you don't fill your house with light, don't be surprised when there's no light. That's called darkness. So from a psychological perspective in terms of spirituality, if we do not live our lives for love, why are you then surprised when hate grows so loud? And if you look at so many of the sources and so many of the roots of some of the worst problems that exist in society and in civilization today, both internationally and domestically, if people had received what they needed when they were too young to give it to themselves, so many of the things that we see in the world, for instance, we should see large groups of desperate people anywhere in the world as a national security risk. Anytime you have a large group of desperate people, that is a petri dish of pathology, of collective pathology and dysfunction. Anytime you have large groups of desperate people, there will be people who are more receptive and more vulnerable to ideological capture by genuinely psychotic forces. It's the same in the body. If you don't take care of your body, if you don't feed your body, if you don't provide nutrition for your body, if you don't boost your immune system, if you don't exercise, if you don't think a certain way, then sickness will set in. But what the ego would say is, well, you don't have to take care of the body, then the sickness will set in, and it's the old paradigm of allopathic medicine. Then just once the sickness shows symptoms, then you will seek to eradicate and suppress the symptoms. We have moved beyond that in terms of the body, and we need to move beyond that in terms of the society at large. If you want peace in the world, you can't just wait till there's violent outbursts and seek to suppress it. You have to proactively create a world that works. And the only way that we can proactively create a world that works is if we see love is the only reason that we are here. But that's not an easy love. That's not necessarily convenient love. You know, when you think of how terrorists operate, these people are serious. Can you imagine a casual terrorist? A person who's like, you know, when it's convenient, I'll do it. These people have shown in horrifying ways they are very, very serious about effectuating the worldview they believe in. The problem is not that there are more people whose hearts are filled with hate than there are people whose hearts are filled with love. That's not the problem. It's that people whose hearts are filled with hate, in far too many cases today, act with conviction. And the Course in Miracles says miracles arise from conviction, the power of thought. And those of us who feel and believe in love and want the world to be loving are too often willing to be, you know, when it's casual, when it's convenient, I'm committed to love. And what is convenient love? Convenient love is I'll take care of my children, but I don't want to have to think about the children on the other side of town, and I don't want to have to think about the children on the other side of the world. Convenient love is I can be really nice and lovely to you. It's easy because you're nice to me. Inconvenient love means I'm going to try to find my spiritual center even when you have not been nice to me, because I know that my capacity to know that whatever you're doing that is loveless towards me, because only love is real and nothing else exists, if I am willing to stand within the space of love, regardless of the lovelessness that is thrown at me, I become a space wherein which the lovelessness is transmuted. Now, each and every one of us is, if we, it's like in the show Mission Impossible. This is your assignment should you wish to take it on, right? Should you wish to take it on means if we are willing to say to God, use me. If we are willing to say, I am willing to be an immune system cell. So it's not like society cannot repair itself. This is extremely important right now with this presidential election. There's some very, very disturbing things in the air these days. There's some very dangerous things in the air these days. That should not be minimized, and we shouldn't pussyfoot around that, and we shouldn't pour pink paint over it and pretend that it's not happening, because it is. But if we feel hopeless in the face of it, then what will happen is that we start ourselves spinning out anger, disengagement, cynicism, etc., or just force back. That is not the answer. The answer is a miracle-minded one. The first sentence in the Course in Miracles is, there is no order of difficulty in miracles. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. The Course in Miracles says God has an answer to every problem the moment the problem appears. So we begin with the fact that there's all this hate talk in America today, that if we take responsibility for the talk that should be held in our society, then the talk that theoretically has no place here. A lot of people are saying things today and people are going, whoa, that kind of language has no place in our civic discourse. That we shouldn't even be going near there. There are too many people in America today who don't seem to know that. Who don't seem to know that, for instance, a peaceful transfer of power and the fact that basically whoever wins an election, we go with that, even if there was a problem in a particular election, just some certain basics of civics and civic discourse. But when you look at how many kids in America today aren't even taught civics. There are so many ways in which we have, generation after generation, year after year, acquiesced to the diminishment of the vital thought forms that are necessary, not only in terms of our individual lives, but collectively. John Adams, who was the second president of the United States, said that he hoped that every July 4th we would revisit, he said, the first principles of our founding. And the founding of the United States was founded on enlightened principles. Now, we can talk about the irony, and it is an irony, it is a tragic irony, of how many of the people risked their lives to establish those principles were themselves slave owners, and slavery couldn't be more of a transgression against those very principles. But that is part of our DNA, that ironic dichotomy between the fact that we are founded on these enlightened principles, the fact that we have never fully embodied them, but the fact that the political journey of the United States is the effort to do that. And in every generation, ours no less than any other, there are two forces. There are the forces who say, hey, let's take this seriously, that all people are created equal. Wow. And that everybody should have equal access to opportunity. Wow. And that we should be free to self-actualize and be whatever we want to be and do whatever we want to do and say whatever we want to say as long as it hurts no one else. And wow, you can be any religion here or no religion, and government can't stop you, and how that liberates the conversation. And that this would be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. These are sacred principles to which we have been giving lip service for too long. We should therefore not be surprised that those who now would counter those principles in so many ways have risen up among us. In Judaism, it says that every generation must rediscover God for itself. And in the United States, every generation must rediscover why these things matter. And what's happening today is that voices are rising up that are saying things and doing things, just like in every generation. There are those who say, let's make this stuff real, and there are those who say, oh, let's not. But just as we had slavery, the power and the beauty of our journey is that we do tend to self-correct in time. So we had slavery in this country, but ultimately slavery was abolished. Women were not given the right to even vote. But ultimately, women's suffrage was established. Then there was institutionalized white supremacy and segregation, legal segregation in the American South, and ultimately the civil rights movement dismantled those operations. Gay people were not allowed to vote, and then a generation that rose up that changed that. So we want to see ourselves as no different than any other generation. The great things about this country, the great things about life, are not guaranteed to us. They have to be downloaded by us. You know, too many times we act like why aren't I getting the good stuff? God doesn't give us the good stuff. God gives us the good stuff through us to be manifest. It's our responsibility. And so, you know, we have become a society where everything's about the pathology, everything's about the wounding, everything's about the microaggression and what I'm not getting, and somebody violated me or transgressed upon me. This keeps us infantilized. It keeps us from becoming the adults we need to be. Would you think that the people who were abolitionists didn't have childhood wounds? Do you think the people who were women's suffragettes didn't go through terrible, terrible experiences with people making them feel horrible, even throwing them in jail and doing terrible things to them for the fact that they were part of that movement? Do you think that the civil rights workers didn't go through terrible things, including sometimes being murdered? I mean, we need to stand up and see ourselves as that vital immune system. Because the universe not only self-organizes in the ways that we were talking about every cell, the universe also self-corrects. There's nothing going on in our society today that cannot be righted if you become who you are capable of being and I become who I'm capable of being. We are all programmed. Just as the embryo, when a woman brings a pregnancy to term, there is a blueprint within her body by which the embryo would become the baby. There is a blueprint within every acorn by which it becomes an oak tree. There is a blueprint within every bud by which it becomes a blossom. It's not like you have to just go build a house without there already being an architectural blueprint. Yes, we are builders, but the problem is we go out to build our house, our life, but we're not following a blueprint, and we think it's our job to design it. But from a spiritual perspective, God has already defined the divine architecture. There is already the perfect template of your life, so that just as the acorn is already programmed to become the oak tree, A Course in Miracles, it would indicate that you are already programmed to become the man or woman that you are capable of being. Each and every one of us is programmed to rise to the highest and fullest manifestation of our capacity this lifetime, and that is, by the way, infinite. The Course in Miracles says that the people on this planet who've achieved the most have achieved a fraction of what each of us is capable of. So let's just sit with that for a moment. Think of the greatest geniuses. Think of the greatest artists. Think of the greatest scientists. Think of the greatest philosophers. Think of the greatest anything. Beethoven, Shakespeare, Martin Luther King, anybody. The people who would you just go, whoa. The Course in Miracles says they achieved a fraction of what each and every one of us is capable of. So when you look at the dysfunction in the world, when you look at the diseases in the world, when you look at the problems in the world, the ego mind says the problem is in the world. The Course in Miracles says, no, what's happening out there is a reflection of us. So if the aspen grove is diseased, you can't just treat the tree, you have to treat the roots where the disease is. And that means that not only are each of us already programmed to be the highest manifestation of our capacity, we are also programmed with exactly what we need in order to be the people through whom, in this historical moment, this country and this planet is repaired. Are you with me? So the notion here is that, once again, when the Course says God already has the answer to every problem the moment the problem occurs, that means that you already have within you the divine blueprint by which you will be who you need to be at this time in history in order to collaborate with you who already has the blueprint within you to be the man that you're capable of being. Now, the Course in Miracles would say, if you meeting this lady here would be the assignment, that all relationships are assignments, if you two meeting would be the opportunity for maximal soul growth, that together you would exponentially be able to serve more, you will meet. Otherwise, you will meet him, and you will meet her. Does that make sense? That once you realize that that's all that's happening in any moment, is that you are being asked to rise to the occasion. None of us can know for sure the part the Course in Miracles says that our piece plays in terms of the larger plan. But what we can know is that our plan is perfect. That's why the Course in Miracles says each and every one of us has a highly individualized curriculum. What's happening here is that we are, in the name of getting more, in the name of making things happen, we are failing in too many cases to show up for what is. You know, so many times we go, oh, I just need the opportunity. I need to go out and get a job. I need to figure out how to get a relationship. And I know just in my own life that if I'm honest with myself, the mistakes and the biggest problems have not been that things didn't happen. They have been that things tried to happen and I missed the moment. That opportunities came and I wasn't clear enough. I wasn't aligned enough. And a lot of times we miss the moment because we're so busy trying to make another moment happen. Because the ego wants you to be thinking about the past or thinking about the future, because the only place where the corrected perception or miracle can happen is in the present. So as Course in Miracles students seeking to be miracle workers, seeking to be cells in the immune system of our country and of our planet, the issue isn't to wake up in the morning and go, ooh, what do I want to have happen? The Course in Miracles does say, visualize and take in and envision the beautiful outcomes. But that's not what we live from. We live from a prayer in the Course, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say, and to whom? If you're Jewish, if you're African American, if you're gay, if you're a woman, if you're Muslim, and in this case, if you're American, you know that you honor your incarnation, that you have incarnated. The bodily level is not the fundamental level, but it is the place that we live from within. You're Christian, you're Hindu, you're Buddhist, you're Jew, you're Muslim, you're gay, you're straight, you're male, you're female, whatever it is. That to stand as perfectly as we can within the situation we already have. So many times we're so involved in like getting a relationship rather than being present in the relationship that we're in. We're always trying to get other people to change. We're always complaining about what we're not getting. You know, too many times you go into a therapy session and you're talking about your relationship and your therapist, because it's trendy today. So too many times the so-called counselor will say, do you really think that this relationship is giving you everything you need? Am I wrong? Isn't that very common? Is this relationship really giving, are all your needs being met here? That is total ego from a Course in Miracles perspective. The Course in Miracles would say, what that person should be saying is, in this relationship, are you really giving everything you have? See how the ego operates? That's why the Course in Miracles says forgiveness is the answer to every problem. If we really want to know how to fix our problems, the issue is, who am I not forgiving? Why is that? Forgiveness means I'm not going to close my heart here. What you did, what you said, your mistake, I'm not going to let that tempt me to close my heart, because miracles occur naturally as expressions of love. So if I keep my heart open, a miracle will happen. If I shut my heart down, it will not. So the universe is self-correcting. No matter what your problem in life, the universe is ready to fix it, but if your heart is closed, the love can't get in. I once had a situation, more than one actually, where I lost a tremendous amount of money. But the tremendous amount of money that I lost in both cases, from a Course in Miracles perspective, my anger at the people who were responsible. The Course in Miracles would say that money and more would have come back 1,000 times over by now. You're holding it at bay, right? Because the universe is already ready, no matter, and that's why I call the law of divine compensation. We wrote about that in a book, that the universe is ready to fix whatever the problem. Or like in relationships, you go into a situation where forgiveness would make it right. You'd have an opportunity to start again in any given instant, because that's how the universe operates. But you just had to bring it up, didn't you? You just had to bring up something from the past. And this is how the ego operates. The ego is a scavenger dog. It always wants to find the evidence of guilt in our brother. It wants to talk about the past. It wants to talk about what somebody else did wrong. Wants to talk about what we're not getting. Talks about what we want to get and what we want to make happen in our lives. And it is a killer. It is a killer individually, and it is a killer collectively. And the Course in Miracles says the greatest power that God has given you is your power to change the world. The Course says the greatest power God has given you to change the world is your ability to change your mind about the world. Change your mind about who you are and why you're here. Wake up in the morning and know that if I think of myself as who I really am, I am an idea in the mind of God. I am here for the purpose of love. If you do that, and you spend, the Course says, even 5 minutes, whether it's the Course in Miracles workbook or any other form of serious meditation. The Course in Miracles says 5 minutes in the morning guarantees Spirit will be in charge of your thought forms throughout the day. Otherwise, you're going to download from the minute you get up. You're going to read the newspaper. You're going to look on the computer. And the stress of the world and the craziness of the world is going to start sucking your life force from you from the minute you wake up in the morning. And it will bombard you and it will barrage you, particularly over the next 3 weeks. Right? And then you are totally at the effect of the craziness of the world. And you won't know, you will just be at the effect. The issue is to be at cause. To know that, yes, it's true, the world is in trouble, but God sent help. God sent me. And if you have that consciousness, not that you say this to anybody, but if your very energy, is such that people look at you like, what do you think you are, God's gift to the world? You'd be very clear that the answer is yes. You are God's gift to the world, no more and no less than anyone else. The Course in Miracles says that all of the children of God are special and none of the children of God are special. The issue, I think the most important advice, whenever things are not as they should be in my life, you know, the Course in Miracles teaches you principles that it says become powers in your problem-solving repertoire. Who am I not forgiving and so forth. But one of them is, get over yourself. This is so not about you. You know, a lot of times people will say, you need to go out there and remember how special you are. You know, if you want to really have power in the world, go out there and remember you're not special at all. Because if you go out there thinking you're so special, you're always going to be afraid somebody's going to discover you're not. You're not. You just happen to be the one who's assigned to that particular system. You're the faucet. You're not the water. God is the water. We're just offering up our hands and offering up our mouths and offering up whatever we are. I remember when I first started A Course in Miracles, and you know, I had the characteristic overzealousness, I think, of the new student. I'll do anything, God, use me, I'll go anywhere. And it was almost like I heard the angels in heaven going, well, she can talk. I remember thinking, I'll go anywhere. Where do you want me to go? You want me to go to India? I'll go to India. And it was like they said, Los Angeles would be good for her. It's when you take life seriously that you stop taking yourself seriously. That's the problem. We're taking ourselves too seriously because we're not taking life seriously. What matters are ideas. What matters are big principles. That's what ruins the universe. When people stop being vessels through which important things can operate. And we're in the 11th hour. It's not midnight yet, but it is the 11th hour. And as we deepen in our receptivity, not deepen, if you want to be effective in the world, you want to be powerful in the world, you recognize that you are not of this world. The Course in Miracles says each of us has this guilty secret, which is, I think I'm an alien here. The Course in Miracles says each of us has that feeling because you are. This world is not our home. Our home is not of this world. We are here, the Course says, as divine representatives, and that's what each and every one of us are. Here to be expressions. And too many times, if we're honest with ourselves, it's the lives we already have that we're not filling with spirit. We're so busy and so trained by the insanity of our society to make it about what we're not getting and how we need to go make it happen, that we're not showing up. We're not showing up as brothers, as sisters. We're not showing up as parents. We're not showing up as husbands, as wives, as lovers, as citizens. We're not showing up for our own lives because we're so busy trying to create another life. The one we have isn't good enough. Rather than realizing that if the one you have isn't good enough, it's because you're not present in some way. You are not rising to the occasion in some way. The universe isn't going to give you more garden until you first tend the one you have really beautifully. So the Course in Miracles says that we are here to create the good, the true, and the beautiful. And you start with where you are. And I started my talk tonight talking about the practicality of spirituality. And this is what I mean. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's the people who are already in your life. It's the decisions that you're already facing. It's not out there, up there somewhere. It's the person that maybe you're being a little harder on than you should be. The person that maybe you could be a little more generous to. It's not just what we go through, but how we stand within what we go through. Because the issue is to become people so aligned with love that we make wiser decisions and therefore have the ability to create better relationships and find ourselves creating with other people to do great things. That's the game, that's the dance, that's the beauty of it all. But also because none of us are perfect and we all have our wounds, we can get to the point where we don't necessarily have to act from the wound. And that's how the wound is healed. And we can become people who are transmuting the situations in which we find ourselves. And that's where we are as Americans today. Some things have gone wrong. The Course in Miracles uses the term wrong-minded and right-minded. But there have been things that have gone wrong in this society before. You know, people, I keep reading, we've never been so polarized. What are you talking about? We had a civil war. We have never been so polarized. I think we've been this polarized, people. We've had terrible things, genocide of Native Americans. We had slavery. We had institutional segregation. I mean, we've had terrible things before. So we have terrible things now. Yes, we have a prison-industrial complex. Yes, we have a criminal justice system that is unjust. Yes, we have some terrible things happening, stronghold of major political parties, desecration of our political system, overriding of money, needing to overturn Citizens United. Yes, but let's be like other generations before us that didn't just whine about it. We can't just whine because, oh, it's so fucked up. It's an infantilization that we have allowed to set in. We need to rise to the occasion. And you know, as I said, part of the problem is that our children aren't being taught history. When I was hearing these people on television today, they were because we have one candidate saying that it's a destruction of America if the other candidate wins, and so these people were being asked, if she wins, will you accept it? And they said, no, we won't accept it. I mean, there's some very, very dark conversation going on. But you know what? That's because they were apparently not taught as children that that's not the way it's supposed to be here, right? And if people aren't taught civics, you can't blame it. So the point is to learn. That's why in Germany, every generation since World War II has been taught about the Holocaust. That's the way Germany guarantees this will not be happening again because every generation is going to know what happened here. Our children aren't taught enough about slavery. They're not taught enough about civil rights. They're not taught about the legacy of racism. They don't therefore know how to contextualize what occurs now. We're not taught enough about the Constitution. Now, everybody's around the Constitution, who are tearing it apart with everything they say. And you know what? What we didn't know before, we can learn now. Where we were whiny and weak before, we can be strong and courageous now. The issue is not whether you got it wrong yesterday. The issue is whether you're willing to get it right today. The point of being, whether you're African American, you know history so that when stuff starts happening that's sort of racist, you can go stop right there. If you're a Jew and you know your history, You know, every people's to honor those who went before so that you can stand in service to your children. Then you hear some anti-Semitic stuff and you know when to say, stop right there. If you're gay and you know some of the stuff that's happened with homophobia in the world and you start hearing stuff and seeing stuff, you know when to say, stop right there. If you're a woman and you know about suffragette and you know about misogyny and you know about the patriarchy and you know about works, you know when and how to say, stop right there. We need to rise up because on November 8th, we're all going to have to say in concert, decisively and passionately about some things that are very dangerous for this country, stop right there. And that is what... And there's no one who's going to do it for us. That's not what America is supposed to be. It's supposed to be, if we are the power, the way power is taken away from people is when we do not exercise our power. Well, we didn't get it, you know. I've had so many things in my own life where I thought, well, I got it wrong, but I get it now. And that's the thing. Rise up now. There is too much happening in the society today, and some of it comes from our own community, which is making us so focused on what we're not getting and how I'm wounded and I'm this and I'm that. Not that we're not having to always heal from our stuff, but like I said, some of the greatest souls in the world who have done the greatest things, they had depressed days too. And they lost children, and they were going through heartbreak, and they lost people that they loved, and they were hurt, and sometimes they even had to sacrifice at the cost of their lives, but they rose up. And that's the message of humanity, is not whether or not things happen, but whether or not the immune system rises up. And that's what needs to happen. We need to be the immune cells of our country and of our world. The world's been in trouble, but it won't be in trouble once you remember who you are, and you remember who you are, and I remember who I am. Because see, too many things in this planet are forces that would actually say to people, you human beings, we're here, you die. International terrorism, we're here, you're gonna die. Diseases, we're here, you're gonna die. Environmental implosion, we're here, you're gonna die. It's time for all of us, instead of going, oh no, for us to go, you know, before I didn't remember who I was, and I didn't realize that God was within me, and I didn't realize that through my holiness there was nothing I could not do. And so I was scared of you because I didn't realize that I have cosmic power and you didn't. And so I actually thought that when you told me to go, I had to leave the planet, and you get to say, but I remember now, I know who God is, I know who lives within me, I'm here. You go, you go, you go. That's what's going to happen. Let's do it. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Very kind of you. Thank you. Thank you. You're very sweet to me. Thank you. I'm very grateful for that. Let's have our meditation now to solidify. You know, we think thoughts, and you want to bring them down. You know, that's why you end things prayerfully. The Course in Miracles says prayer is the medium of miracles. Our great friends, Adam Isidore and Richard Learmont, neither one of them are in New York tonight or available to us. So we're going to be meditating with music. And join with me. Take a deep breath and settle into your peace. When we think of the things that bring us anxiety and disturbance in our own lives, in our country, and on our planet, it is very tempting to fear. In this moment, we give all of our individual problems as well as our collective problems to God. We surrender to Him our individual concerns, problems, decisions to be made. And we surrender as well this political season, our country, our environment, our criminal justice system, international terrorism, issues of war and peace. There are so many, so much. But together we place these things in the hands of God. In placing our problems in the hands of God, we place them in a space within our own mind where we ourselves are lifted above our weakness to our strength, above our confusion to our clarity, above our woundedness to our health, above our childishness to our maturity, above our fractiousness to our wisdom, above the disordered mind to divine clarity. We surrender to God all of our relationships, asking only that they be a blessing and that we be a blessing on those we know and love. We ask to be the people God would have us be, that we might do as God would have us do. And we pray to be used. Dear God, please use our hands and please use our feet. Use us in our intimate relationships that we might be a blessing on those we love. Use us in our workplace that our work might be lifted to its highest level of service. Guide us as citizens. Guide us as brothers and sisters of each other. In us, dear God, may there thus be born a new and more beautiful world. Your world that already dwells within us. May it be brought forth through us. As through your power within us we create the good, the true, and the beautiful. Faucets for the divine water flowing through us in any moment we open our minds and open our hearts. Tell us where you would have us go and what you would have us do, what you would have us say and to whom. On this night, we dedicate and devote our lives to you, to love, and to love's purposes in the world. Lift us up, that together we might uplift the world. And so it is. Together, we all say, Amen. Okay, all right, let's talk about anything that you want to. Get right to the bottom line, please, with the question, and I will, to the best of my ability, reflect on the question from the principles of the course and all that we talk about here. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Marianne, I need a miracle, and I'd like to get some understanding about a situation in my family that I can't wrap my head around.
Okay.
And I'd like to understand how God can use me to help them. My niece's little 3-year-old boy, he just turned 3. He's been having a series of clumsiness and some weakness, and he had a fall recently, so they took him to the emergency room and did a CAT scan and found a brainstem glioma, and they're told that he has 6 months to live. So I don't understand. I just want to know if there's something in the course that can guide me with this, and how can I help my family?
Let's say a prayer for your niece and for this child. What is the baby's name?
Tony.
Tony. Let's say a prayer for this baby. What's your niece's name, his mom?
Stephanie.
Stephanie. Dear God, we have been told of a little baby named Tony and the problem, physical, that he has. And we have been told as well by what the doctors say his prognosis is. But while we accept the diagnosis, dear God, we know that the prognosis is in your hands. And so we join in praying for Tony, for his mother Stephanie, for all members of this family. And we pray that the divine physician now come upon this child. And we know that if it is in divine right order and in the highest interests of this child and this child's family, for this child to stay incarnate as a physical being, that is not up to any physical challenge. That decision lies on the level of soul. So we pray, dear God, that the hand of the divine physician come upon this child, and maybe he be healed. And as the divine physician appears in whatever form it appears within any mind here, to some it appears as Jesus, the power of the Holy Spirit comes upon this baby. And he is lifted up above and beyond all regions of disease. And the disease itself is cast out to go back to the nothingness from whence it came. And so it is. We say, amen. I want to say a little bit. We pray in knowing that physical miracles are absolutely possible. We cannot know. There's a woman, one of the greatest faith healers of the 20th century was a woman named Amy Semple McPherson. And I've read all the biographies of her. It was always very fascinating to me. She never knew, even though many physical miracles and many physical healings were definitely attributed to her, she herself did not know. She would not know when one was going to quote unquote work and when one wasn't going to work. So something is at play beyond what we can know. So we hold to the thought that it is possible. We hold to the thought that God is more powerful than this child's, what do you say, lymphoma or malignant? Okay. Now, having said that, there is something for all of us here. I don't know if this is the case with this child, but we all do know that it is the case with many, many children. The carcinogens in our food, the carcinogens in our air, the carcinogens in our earth. And this is an example of what I was saying earlier, how we have acquiesced too much, and we all know why. We all know because of the financial interests of big chemical companies, the financial interests of big agricultural companies. Just like in the when it's the financial interests of the banks, or the financial interests of the big pharma, financial interests of military-industrial complex, or whatever. So we can't know about this child. Certainly there were children who died of terrible diseases long before any of those interests. But this is an example. Too many things happen on this planet because we have allowed, yes, we have allowed by our own disengagement things to happen and elements to be present which are affecting our children, affecting us, and affecting people throughout the world for no other reason than that we didn't seem to have a problem with it. Does that make sense? Can I be?
My husband and I lost our 2.5-year-old 3 weeks ago, and the torture that we're going through. I'm reading your book right now, and I'm trying so hard to appreciate the idea of darkness to light and finding that awareness that this happened for God knows what reason, but how can I help? How can I be of service? But I find myself in so much pain that I can't help myself, and I so badly want to help myself and my husband.
Is your husband here as well?
Yeah.
First of all, I say on behalf of everybody here, and I'm sure everybody watching, our deepest condolences to you. Our deepest condolences.
I'm so sorry for your news, but I pray.
What are your names?
Genevieve and John.
Genevieve and Don, there is no, I'm sorry?
John.
John, there is no way that you could be right now anywhere other than where you are. I admire that you woke up, got out of bed this morning. I admire you for getting out of bed this morning, and I deeply admire you for seeking solace in a place like this. This is the time to cry. You cannot, this full tilt catastrophe has occurred in your lives. This is a full tilt catastrophe. And you will never forget this, but your life will become so big that it will become a sweet memory. And hopefully, dear God, there will be other children and new life. And not that you will ever forget this child, but mysteries will unfold. Right now, I think if anything, my hope would be that you cleave to each other. That's the one thing. It is totally understandable and right, and you will find that in this book. Your tears, this is the time to cry. One of the most powerful lines in the Bible is Jesus wept. But be there for each other. And you probably know the statistics on this one. Yeah. Be there for each other. Allow each other your own needs in the way you both process this. There is no wrong way to process it. That makes sense? Yeah. That makes sense. And allow, just as this lady here and this lady here, yes, you have people around you who are in her own grief is taking care of you. Let your families and your friends be there for you. Rooms like this, be there for you. And that is what you will find in the book, whether it's the 3 days that Jesus was on the cross, the 40 years that the Israelites were in the desert, the 40 days that Buddha wrestled with the illusion. There's a period of time. And your psyches, this is what I was talking before about the psychic immune system. Your psyche knows how to handle this. And it will. But right now, you need to cry. Of course you do. And, you know, they've even done some studies about the chemical elements of tears. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Yeah. Can we pray with you?
Yes, please.
Let's pray for Genevieve and John. What was the name of your child?
Penelope Grace.
Penelope Grace. Dear God, we pray for the heartbroken couple, Genevieve and John, as their precious child, Penelope Grace, dear God, has been lifted to your arms. We pray that there be a golden cord placed at one end to Penelope's heart and at the other end to the heart of her mother, Genevieve. And that golden cord placed at one end to Penelope's heart and at the other end to the heart of her father, John. And we witness as God himself, Jesus, or any other image, places his hands upon this cord, and we are reminded, whom God hath brought together, nothing and no one, not even death, can put asunder. May John and Genevieve be lifted. May their inner eyes be opened to the non-reality of death. For as Penelope no longer appears as a physical being, she is alive in God. She shall be as an angel on their shoulders always. Death itself is nullified by God. Dear God, keep Penelope herself in the most tender, sweetest corners of heaven, and send your angels as well to minister unto her father and her mother, that they might be comforted at this moment of their grief, lifted to a place of knowing that in the real world there is no death, and all is well. Amen. So the Course in Miracles says that there is no death. Now, you don't say to a grieving person, oh, this is all an illusion, because the human experience, of course, is the terrible grief and sorrow. But we're presented with an image of life like a book that never ends. Chapters end. One person was incarnate, and now they're not now. You're incarnate, they're no longer incarnate. It's a new chapter in your relationship with that being, but the book itself never ends. So I hope that all of you will join with me, and let's all remember John and Genevieve in our prayers over the coming days and weeks. Our love to you. You're so welcome. Okay, who's next? Yes, sir.
At the end of your presentation, you said, God is within me, I'm going to stay, you go.
Yes.
In a rather aggressive tone. I like that, if it's cool. But at the same time, you speak about reacting and responding with love.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm having a conversation with a friend of mine. This happened years ago. And we're having this big conversation. And another friend walks in and says, God, you guys are always fighting. And we turned to the friend and said simultaneously, we're not fighting, we're Jewish. Jesus threw over the tables of the money changers. Some people can't understand how Jesus did that. No Jew or Italian would have a problem with that scene. So this idea that what spiritual looks like is some ethnic groups don't even relate to that. If you look at, birth is violent. Labor isn't like this, it's a little tea party. Look at a little blade of grass growing up from the bottom of things. And look at it under a microscope and look at what it does to the dirt around it. It's really violent to the dirt around it. So this idea, and this is where, as a matter of fact, Caitlin, where are you, honey? This is the only place I get abandonment panic in my life, is when I'm talking to a lot of people I can't. Oh, Caitlin! John, somebody, would you bring me my purse, please? Thank you, I want to read to you something I put on Facebook. So I get a lot of this criticism, but aren't we so spiritual? Spiritual shouldn't be engaged in stuff like that. It's so toxic. It's so negative. And this image, this is not, when you look at something like the Hindu goddesses like we were talking about, there's the red tar, there's a blue tar, there's a green tar. The goddess is fierce. So thank you. I have a phone in here somewhere. Okay, I got it. I'll have to turn it on. Hold on, give me a moment. So I receive a lot of this. If you're so spiritual, why, politics is like that, and we should all be this kind of, it's as unbalanced as the patriarchy. Like Germaine Greer, the famed Australian feminist, said the opposite of patriarchy is not matriarchy, but fraternity. The opposite of a system that is imbalanced with too much yang and not enough yin. You also don't want a situation that's all yin and no yang. You don't want a situation that's all passive and no active. You want the healthy feminine, but you want the healthy masculine as well. Does that make sense? So there's a lot of that questioning, sir, from this element, of well, if we're so spiritual, why would you be, it's almost like you see a house burning, you're not supposed to yell, fire! Aren't you supposed to yell fire if the house is burning down? I'm a mother. Do you have children, sir? But if you saw a child in trouble, you would do anything. Now, as a man, you would have a little bit less of an issue with thinking that other people might think you're just strident or angry and you couldn't be spiritual. You wouldn't even have to think about that. Does that make sense? And that's why I wanted to read this to you, if I may, because I had received so many of these, and I think a lot of women particularly. You know, there is a common anthropological characteristic among all adult female species, among all advanced mammalian species. A common anthropological characteristic of the ones that thrive and survive is the fierce behavior of the adult female of the species when she senses a threat to her cubs. Look, you know, if you're about to go hiking in the wilderness, they'll tell you, don't worry about the black bears, just don't get near their babies or they'll come at you. Or the lions or the tigers. And if you see a National Geographic special about how the mama bears and the mama tigers and lions behave and how they'll go after anything that seems to be a danger to that cub, nobody says about the lion or the tiger or the bear, she's got anger issues that I think she needs to work through. Does that make sense? So I had heard a little of this one too many times. So I wrote something that I thought from somebody who once again just said that my being political, you know, when they said to Gandhi, someone said to Gandhi, you're so spiritual, how could you get involved in politics? And he said, is not politics a part of Dharma too? Politics is simply our collective lives. The principles are the same as any other area. If you're going to have a spiritual healing on the planet, it can't be just some areas of our lives. So I got this, and I know this wasn't from you, sir, about me personally, but I think because so many of us, particularly as women, are concerned about that, like we might not be considered, you know, there's this whole nice girl thing, or what spiritual is supposed to look at. Like, I wrote this, and I think some of you might appreciate it. Dear sir, thank you for your note. As a woman, I reject the naming of our fierceness as anger. Although I realize it is unconscious on your part, this is a subtle, misogynistic way of making a woman feel guilty for her passion. The goddess within us all is not angry, yet she does have a fierce side. She does not just go along. She is not always soft, and she is not always passive. If she sees her children threatened, she is fiercely proactive in protecting them. The term warrior goddess comes to mind. Prepackaged views of spirituality that name the feminine but not the masculine, the yin but not the yang, at least as they apply to a woman's personality, simply makes us into people pleasers, afraid to express the fullness of ourselves, lest someone, particularly a man, finds us unattractive in some way and says, I'm out. Because that's what he said at the end of his email. Until you get this part together, I'm out. To me, that is neither the womanhood nor the spirituality I seek. Making a woman feel guilty for yelling fire when the house is burning down is an age-old trick of the ego when it is terrified of a woman's strength. Now, it's on Facebook. But I'd like to talk for a moment about what that has done to men as well as women. Because you have many men, and this has come up too, the idea that men had been made to feel by false views of spirituality and by false, flawed forms of feminism, that being masculine is by definition being macho. And so many men, this is not just scarred women, it has scarred men as well. Men who are afraid to really act like men sometimes, and I'm sorry, American men are very wounded this way. It's a really wounded masculine because of the cases where they will be deemed, in some cases they're right, by certain women as being macho. So we want to remember there is a healthy masculine. There is a healthy aspect of the personality which is going to take care of business. Does that make sense? And I think that our respect for that, respect for the yang as well as the yin, in both men and women, is a healthy balance without which women are afraid to be themselves and men are afraid to be themselves. Right? So thank you. Does that answer your question, sir? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, John. Yes, ma'am. We talk a lot on Facebook. Okay, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
This is just a quick comment to add on to that.
Okay, you want to stand up? I'm just a little concerned. If you don't mind standing up, do, just so the people in live stream will feel more.
Sure. So I just wanted to add to what you were saying. I was raised in a conservative Christian tradition, and we were taught that women were helpmeets. So basically,
We're helpmates?
Yeah, helpmates. You know, basically I was going to be some guy's secretary wife. And
By the way, there's nothing wrong with being a secretary, and there's nothing wrong with being a wife.
no, but I'm
They're both
sorry,
beautiful,
however,
actually. Yeah, I know what you mean.
But just that I was going to be the assistant to someone
Right.
who was going to be the
Right.
the main show.
Right.
And anyway, the teaching of going back to the Hebrew of Eve being described is Ezer Kenegdo, and the only other time those words are used in Scripture are to describe God and to describe a military force that comes in to bring support in battle.
Wow.
And so the woman is the helper in the sense that God is our helper. The woman is the strength who comes to save the day. So anyway, that for me to understand that as a woman,
Okay.
my role to help was to be the Ezer Kenegdo, to be this helpful support in a mutual thing. Anyway,
Okay, thank you for bringing that up. So there's a lot to talk about here. I'll go up so that, because you can't, can everybody see me if I'm standing here, or should I go back up? Because this is a big room, and okay, this woman brings up so much. I once said to my mother many years ago, it was back in the 70s, and I was who I was. Mommy, why don't you just... Mommy, why don't you just admit it? Judaism is a very patriarchal religion. I mean, what do you get to do, Mommy? I mean, Daddy's supposed to go out there and he's supposed to do so much. And what is the woman supposed to do? Like, stay at home and lead the prayers. I mean, really? My mother had a look on her face. She looked at me and she said, "That is how little you understand. That is how little you understand." And she talked about how she felt that lighting the Sabbath candles was what held this family together. And that her holding that space. And I came to understand that at that time in my life, my invalidation of my mother's life, because her whole life was dedicated to my father, her whole life was dedicated to her children, her whole life was dedicated to her home. And I thought that that wasn't important enough. And it took me decades to realize how wrong I was. And the more I learned about things like the goddess, etc., part of the problem these days is women don't get that the main work of the goddess is taking care of the children and taking care of the home. It's just that we have evolved to realize that that must mean everybody's children and the earth itself is our home. So the idea that a woman, where is that lady? Yes, ma'am. So there is a metaphysical way in which I always say men carry the suitcases, we carry their issues. There is a way, you know, we're all masculine and we're all masculine and we're all feminine. It's like men are majoring in masculine and minoring in feminine this lifetime. A woman is majoring in feminine and minoring in masculine. Okay? So and the masculine and the feminine are equal in importance and equal in strength. So the idea of the feminine as the no thing out of which all things emerge. Now, this has been interpreted by the ego to a dominator model where man is over woman. But when it is seen metaphysically, it is neither is over the other. Now, when it comes to our romantic relationships and how this has taken shape in terms of the submissive woman and saying, I obey, and the wedding ceremony and all of that we have left behind. There was a woman named Pat Allen, who is a psychotherapist in Southern California, who I think is just brilliant, and she bases her work on the work of Carl Jung. And we talked about this a little bit last week. She talks about how we have become, in our thinking, ambisexual. That we have been so afraid of taking on any issue of masculine and feminine that we can't find each other because it's also genderless. Does that make sense? And for me, this has actually been very meaningful. I'll give you an example. Pat Allen says, based on this Jungian work, that within any system, and this is true gay or straight, it has nothing to do with the actual biology here. In terms of energy, 2 masculine cancel each other out, and 2 feminine cancel each other out. Now, at this lecture here tonight, I am the masculine element, you are the feminine element. I am the giver, you are the receiver. It wouldn't be happening if I weren't here, but it also wouldn't be happening if you weren't here. It's the giving and the receiving, it's that yin and the yang. I've learned, like many women have learned, and at great personal cost, that the mentality by which, I'm going to tell you what I think, that works here because that is the social contract, does not work with a man I love. Okay? As I once said to a man in my life, well, I just got this email from somebody who said she's going to cross an ocean to go to my seminar because she wants to hear what I have to say. He said, I can't imagine crossing an ocean to come hear what you think. I can't imagine going anywhere to hear what you think, but I would cross the universe to be with you when you're quiet. So, okay, I'll shut up now. Okay, so the idea here is that even though obviously we abhor and obviously we reject the notion that man is to have power over woman, this has led in too many cases to a kind of flawed strain of feminism in which in the name of feminism we ourselves have suppressed the feminine. And we ourselves have failed to honor that there is a magnetic power that is as important as the dynamic power. The dynamic power within men and women is that which goes out and does. And like I was just saying to that man, we need to stop apologizing for the fact that for who it is in us, it goes out and kicks ass. But we also should not underestimate the spiritualization, which is the femininization, which is the God self as magnet. The magnetic feminine force within you magnetizes. That's why when a woman is doing too much, she's in her on an energetic level with a man she loves. If you're into your masculine, their 2 masculines cancel each other out. He can't be in his masculine in your presence if you're already in your masculine. He either has to leave or give up his masculine, and a healthy male won't want to do that. But we have not remembered, as people like my mother knew, that when she was in her feminine, this attracted the masculine. It's just like if there are iron shavings and you try to go in there with your fingers or with a pencil to try to create a design, it won't work. But if you place a magnet, then all of the shavings will form their perfect place. So I think that there is an element where the feminine in us is here to support. And I do think that in let's say a marriage or a love relationship, whether it's gay or straight, I think that we need to stop rejecting the notion that we're here to help. And the other person is here to help us. It's like I said earlier in the talk, we're always thinking about, is this relationship giving me everything I need? But the real question is, if whoever you woke up with this morning, did you pray for their happiness today? If you woke up with somebody this morning, did you tell them before they left the house how fantastic they are? How much you believe in them? How incredible they are? How you just can't even believe how lucky everybody's going to be around them today? Did you do that? And so I think that this idea of helpmate has a divine purpose too, as long as we realize that that is in each and every one of us, that we are to be the helpmate of each other. Is a man here to take care of you? Absolutely, and you are here to take care of him. And whether it's gay or straight, yes, we're here to take care of each other. Life is hard. You know, we always talk about how everybody talks about children's self-esteem. We need to build children's self-esteem. At what age do we stop needing that? At what age do we stop needing somebody to say, you can do this and I believe in you and you go? I mean, in a way, you need even more the older you get and the more you go through in life. Does that make sense? We need to, much as I was saying earlier tonight, we need to more fully embody the grandeur of being a friend, being a mother, being a father, being a child, being a sister, being a brother, to take the roles more seriously, to really be there for each other. Does that speak to that? Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you. Anybody else here tonight? I want to make sure we're okay time-wise. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So this sort of builds off of that a little bit with the relationship. So it's a relationship question.
Yes, ma'am. You want to stand up so that the live
sure.
stream is great? Thank you.
Sure. So
I'll come over here.
okay. So basically, I'm dating someone right now, my boyfriend, who I'm very grateful for. And I'm basically at the place right now where I'm trying to decide if he's the one I want to marry. That's sort of where we are.
And he has asked you?
Yeah, we're
Good.
Oh no, he hasn't officially asked me
But you know,
to marry him.
You're not the only one in the conversation.
Yeah, we're both trying to figure that out, basically.
Okay, good.
Okay, so now the thing is that he is very Christian, and he really believes in what the Bible says, which I totally respect. It's wonderful. I am a little bit less that way, a little bit more of the sort of more open spiritual. I connect more to A Course in Miracles. I've also read Conversations with God. And so basically I'm just trying to figure out if his view and what he wants out of life and how he wants to raise a family through the very spiritual Christian viewpoint would also work for me. And so you were talking about, we shouldn't be looking at relationships as, does it serve me? Does it serve me? So I'm trying to, and I'm trying to be a blessing on his life, and I'm trying to not judge him. I'm trying to look at it in a viewpoint of love. But is there a certain point when we must ask ourselves, does this work for me?
Have you been to church with him?
No, I haven't been to church with him, but I have prayed with him, and I am currently undertaking the learning of much more about Christianity, getting to know Jesus, which I'm trying to be very open about, which I am open about.
Yes.
And so I'm looking into it more.
And is he interested in? Has he looked at some of the books that you are interested in?
That he hasn't. I think that he's pretty firm on what he believes. Yeah.
Well, I'm not talking about changing his beliefs.
Yeah, and I don't want to change him, and I don't think I should be in a relationship to change somebody.
But there is something here, not about changing the beliefs of the other, but of respecting the beliefs of the other. And that's why I asked if you had been to church with him, if he had been to something like this with you, or if he had looked at Conversations with God, or if he had looked at A Course in Miracles, or something like that. The issue is not necessarily that you buy into the beliefs of another person. But what is ultimately problematical is if you feel subtle, proactive disrespect for the beliefs of the other person.
No, he definitely respects my beliefs. It's just that we're trying to figure out if, with mutual respect, we can still live with that, because it's really important for him to
raise children.
Raise children with his beliefs, to have a partner who's really going to support his connection to God, which I do, but I think that he feels he needs it under a strictly Christian
So in other
light,
words, he wants to marry you, but he wants you to change?
No, he doesn't want me to change. We're just trying to figure out if it can work, basically. And so that's why I'm confused.
And is the conversation mainly around how to raise the children?
No, it's if we're the right ones for each other.
Well, I have to tell you, religion aside, if it's this analytical, it doesn't sound too hot to me.
It is, though. It's that as well. It is. But,
Have you prayed together and asked?
Have we prayed together and asked about this?
Yes, if you prayed together and asked God if that is God's will for your lives.
No, we haven't done that yet.
I would suggest that you do that.
Okay.
Ask God, pray together and say, dear God, if our being married would be the highest, your will in our lives, that's where you go for the answer.
Okay. Thank you.
The Course in Miracles says that we are to go to the internal decision. And that issue of decision making, the Course in Miracles says you are to make no decisions for yourself. Because your mortal mind cannot know what's going to happen tomorrow. But there is a place within you. Remember, when you go to God, you are not going to something outside yourself. So when you place a decision in God's hands, you are asking that the higher mind illumine your mortal thinking. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier tonight. This whole idea about how the Course in Miracles is very practical. So the theological notion is this. The notion is that God exists in a realm that is beyond time and space. And in that realm that is beyond time and space, it is the realm of ultimate reality. The Course says this Course can be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened, and nothing unreal exists. So in the realm of ultimate reality, there's only love. Over here is the realm of the human experience. Once again, the roots, we were talking about the aspen grove. This is ultimate reality. This is the trees above the earth. Now, the Course in Miracles says, millions of years ago, as we know it, although in reality it never occurred at all, the human mind separated itself from the realm of ultimate reality. The reason the Course says it never actually happened at all is because since only love is real, the Course in Miracles says when you think without love, you're actually not thinking, you are hallucinating. So everything that is loveless is happening within this realm of illusion or mortal hallucination. Now, some people say, then therefore are we not to ignore it? But it's like, no, you're not to ignore the starving child. You're not to ignore nuclear bombs. You're not to ignore this. Rather, the Course says, in the moment that humanity had the first thought of lovelessness, that was the original moment of separation, the Course calls it. It was a course that, I love how in the Course, this is a moment when humanity the Son of God took a detour into fear. Because loveless thought produces fear, just as light, the absence of light is dark, the absence of love is fear. So that's, you get all neurotic, your psychic energy gets neurotic and crazy when it has not been proactively given to service and love. Are you with me? So, in that moment that we began having this gigantic mortal hallucination, as I said earlier, the Course says God has an answer to every problem the moment the problem occurs. In that moment, God would not force us back to loving thought because God is love and love does not force. In that moment, the Course says, God created the alternative with a capital A, which is a space in your consciousness, should you request it. Now, it's not going to do it without your request because that would be a violation of your free will. But if you're in the craziness of the world's not working, if you say, dear God, help me, technically, God knows it's not actually happening. But God has placed within your consciousness to be with you while in the midst of this illusion, his representative, his divine teacher, his what the Course in Miracles calls the gentle bridge of perception, another expression of which is the Holy Spirit. So the Course in Miracles says the Holy Spirit is the aspect of the mind of God which is with us while we are in the illusion. So once I recognize that everything not happening loving in my life or in our collective experience is actually rooted in mistaken thought or loveless thinking, and I ask the Holy Spirit for help, The Holy Spirit is authorized by God to send you whatever you need. It could be the comment or help from a friend, a song lyric, a book, a teaching, a movie you see, a thought you just happen to have. Once you ask for divine guidance, it will be there. Does that make sense? So when we go, we take everything back for divine illumination, and that's what it means to say, I need a miracle. To say I need a miracle means I need another way of seeing this. I am willing to see this differently. Does that make sense? So the Course in Miracles says you think you have many different problems, but you really only have one, and that is your separation from God. So in a moment like this issue of, do I marry this man? Would that be best? You pray and you ask. This lady who was talking, the first thing you said was, I need a miracle. And that is how the Course works. So if nobody else has any other questions tonight? Okay, one more. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Hi. You spoke earlier and you said about being very passionate about something that is someone's assignment.
Yes.
And so I also believe that God or the universe would never give you a dream that you are so passionately about that you would not be able to fulfill.
God would never give, yes, okay, I'm with you.
But if you haven't been able to fulfill that,
right,
and you're still trying to be of service, there's somewhat of a separation. Do I continue to try to fulfill this dream, or is that not where I'm of most service?
Would you be comfortable giving me a little bit of detail? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, so if not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
you are comfortable?
Yes, yes.
Okay, tell me the story.
Since I was 5, I wanted to be a fashion model.
Okay.
I'm about a foot short and with a beak that's a little too big for the industry. But I don't think about anything else. So what do you do?
Well, the Course in Miracles says, beware the temptation to self-initiated plans. So the issue when you say, dear God, use me, comes along with it, however you wish. Okay? Use me however you wish. You didn't incarnate as a foot taller. I don't think you're a beautiful woman, and I don't really buy into the nose thing. But I do understand what you're saying about the height thing. Okay, so you say, you're in partial surrender. That's the problem. Yes. It's partial surrender. It's full surrender. Use me. And the issue is, if you were in ways that you cannot see now, but that you might see 10 years from now, if you had been a foot taller and a fashion model, that would have thrown you off your dharmic destiny.
What if nothing else brings you any passion?
Okay.
Even though you've been meditating and quieting your thoughts and saying, I am your vessel, use me. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Because now let's talk about this. Because if you are, and what are you, in your 30s? How old are you, ma'am?
I'm a lot older than I look.
Well, you're gorgeous. Okay. This stuff cannot not work. So it's kind of like if you do the 12 steps, they work. If you go to the gym, it works. So we don't serve each other by buying into, oh, you've done it, your wand is broken. So on one hand, you're saying to me, I've always felt that it's about being a fashion model, but then you're also saying, I have always asked and used me. So at a certain point of full surrender, it's full surrender. And that is where a lot of us get stuck. As a matter of fact, if you would even be at a lecture like this, you're already into the conversation enough that probably everybody here is already into partial surrender, or you wouldn't even be attracted to being at something like this. It's the issue of all of it. That's the story in the Bible when God said, kill your son. That's Abraham, right? And no, not just kidding. I just want to know for sure that you go all the way. There is a going all the way. There is a use me however and wherever without attachment to what it looks like. Because being a fashion model is the realm of form. And the Course in Miracles talks about the difference between form and content. So the Holy Spirit enters into the realm of form, but we're to remain in that space of total content. And then if you are in ways that you are not, in ways that you can't even know now, as you move into the deeper depths of your own miracle readiness and your own serious devotion. You know, it's interesting. I want to talk about the higher consciousness community. The higher consciousness community has developed this kind of, we'll say to the goddess, use me as your vessel. But too often when it comes to the Western religious and spiritual traditions, we stay stuck at words like enlightenment, transformation, and self-actualization, but we won't go all the way to, dear God, use me. And as the deeper you go, the deeper, if you're going to have a high house, a high building, you have to have a big hole in the ground. And so the bigger the space we make within ourselves, use me. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care where you want me to go. Where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say and to whom? That space carved out, because once again, it can't work except through us, can't work without our permission, would be a violation of our free will. So what I would submit to you is that as you say, you know, I've always wanted to be a fashion model, but there's something I'm not seeing, use me however. Look, he's going to use, and he already uses, the fact that you're physically beautiful. And that's a beautiful thing. A beautiful woman is a great gift in the world.
Well, what does that say about our dreams then? Are our dreams really just illusions and we're
well,
not supposed to have them?
Well, this is the thing. I started tonight, this is the point. I started tonight talking about how everybody has this idea, and it has taken this pseudo-spiritual face, that somehow the top of the spiritual mountain, it's for you to figure out your dreams, figure out what you want to have happen, and go make it happen. Adolf Hitler did that. The fact that you can have what you think is your dream and go make it happen, once again, the Course in Miracles says, beware the temptation to self-initiated plans. So the issue is it your story or is it the story that God is drawing through you? And so you place your dreams in the hands of God. And you ask that God dreams through you. Dear God, may what you want to happen through me. The more you carve out, when Gandhi was asked, don't you want to really serve your nation? Wouldn't you want to be president of India? He said, the greatest service I could be to India would be to reduce myself to zero. To reduce yourself to zero. The Course in Miracles talks about self with a little s and self with a big S. It talks about the difference between grandiosity and grandeur. We're taught grandiosity. It's about me. And that's why I was saying earlier in tonight, the biggest advice you can give yourself is get over yourself. Because God uses us more. If I was standing here tonight, and this dream and who I am and what I'm going to do, I would be afraid. I wouldn't be flexible. Because I'd be afraid you might not like me, or afraid of what you thought of me, and maybe you'd figure out I was no big deal. The Course says you aren't any big deal. You're just the one who happens to be here. It could be anyone, but the way it turns out in this particular situation, I'm the one saying it. Doesn't mean you're any better or any worse than anyone else. You can't make it about your dreams, and then what would my dream be here to make happen? Then you get into what my dream is, more people. So then you start figuring out what you should say to get more people, all that. And you lose your innocence, and so you lose your power. And so that's why it's like, this is what I think I want, dear God, if it's meant to be. It's the difference between this ambition, you move from ambition to inspiration. You leave behind the sales mentality, and it's a service mentality, and that's what you do. Say, dear God, use all that I am and all that I have. You know how tall I am. You know what I look like. You know what my capacities are. You know my strengths, whatever. And the Course in Miracles says each and every one of us has unlimited potential to be used in the service of the healing of the world. No one has more, no one has less. And that's the level we reach for. And because the absence of that is what causes the psychic energy of trying to make my dreams come true. Listen, when I think of some of, and all of us, if you're honest with yourself, think of some of the things at a certain point in your life you thought were the dreams you wanted to make come true, like some of the people that you wanted at the time. Oh my God, where would your life be today if they reciprocated? So sometimes you were saved by the fact that what you thought were your dreams at that time did not come true. How does this work for you? Does this finding resonance within you in any way?
Yes and no. Only because I feel that the dream that I've always had, I've had for so long, that I wouldn't think that it didn't come from love.
Tell us about this dream. You want to be a fashion model. What does that mean to you?
That I can help people because it's a platform that I can use.
Okay, let's talk about that. What you really want is a platform by which you can help people. No? What?
I would use that to catapult into that, to be of service.
Okay.
But I find probably nothing else as inspirational.
Okay.
When I work as a production assistant, as they have Fashion Week, it's like that light that I can carry with me for a month or two at a time, and everyone's like, that's what you should be doing.
Okay,
So it's so deep-rooted, and it's so innocent, and it's so pure, and it's appreciation for that industry.
Okay. So what you really want is a platform by which you help people. And you do have a sense that your physical beauty has something to do with it. There's nothing wrong with that, honey. There's nothing wrong with the fact that you feel that the universe somehow is going to use your physical beauty as a kind of magnetic force. That's fine, but give all the details to God. Fashion model is not the only way that can be. So when you're a production assistant, there's a knowing in you don't belong behind the camera. That's okay. That's okay. But there are many ways you could be in front of the camera that's not a fashion model as you define it. Does that make sense? So the answer still remains the same. Honor what your real desire is, to have a platform. You want to help people. And you feel your beauty has something to do with it. And any of us can look at you and we go, yeah, we can see that. But it's the attachment to form. You know, Buddha says that all suffering comes from attachment, and that all things of the physical world can only bring temporary happiness. It's your attachment to that form that is causing your suffering, and also it's keeping the other things from coming in. Does that make sense? So you have to say, dear God, I don't know how you're going to do this, because I'm a foot too short, so I don't know how you're going to do it, but do something. That make sense? Okay, all right, let's say our final prayer. Thank you. Okay. I hope you have a wonderful week, and next week, God willing, as my mother would say, we will be back here on Tuesday night. I want to thank all of the people, Gail, all the people at Marble, John and Caitlin, all of the wonderful volunteers. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. At the end of the talk, I will be back in the parlor room where all the books and the CDs are, and also Carrie Kelly will be there from Citizen Well. So avail yourself of that opportunity. Okay, let's pray. We pray tonight for each other, sending our blessings, our goodwill, and our peace. We pray for Rachel, Denise, Jack, and Kay, for Patrice, for Annette, for Grace and Guy, for Dawn, for John, and for this young woman who just spoke of her desire to be a fashion model. Dear God, we know that you know her life as you know us all, and we join with her in surrendering. For her deepest passion is ours, to feel that we are used, to feel that your creative spirit works through us, creating something meaningful and important and significant that is of use to others. We join with her in praying that this be her reality and ours as well. Now go forth in confidence and go forth in peace. For there are angels to your left and angels to your right. There are angels in front of you and angels behind you. There are angels above you and angels below. There is a path of light paved in the mind of God. With every step, seek his light, his love, his non-judgment, his mercy, his atonement, and his forgiveness. In any moment of confusion or doubt, reach out your hand for an elder brother to guide you, for such is no idle fantasy. He is here. And so it is, we pray for the entire world, for happiness and peace for all living things. And so it is. We all say, amen. God bless you, everybody. Thank you so much for being here.